All right, so this morning we have Senator the Honorable Hasselbachus, the Minister of Digital Transformation, here with us this morning. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning, Raucus, and good morning to all your viewers and TTT and in our show.
Let me first of all say congratulations on your new appointment as the Minister of Digital Transformation in your own standalone ministry. I am curious. Let's start with defining what is in store for us here in the Ministry of Digital Transformation. There's a difference between digitization and digitalization, if I'm not mistaken, yeah?
Absolutely.
Can you tell us what that difference is?
Well, so a lot of people use the terms interchangeably. And while, they sound alike, they're actually quite different. And in everyday life, you kind of walk into them, but you don't really notice it. So digitization is really simply the transformation of something that is analog, let's say on paper, and turning it into a digital document. So, people familiar with scanning things and you take it from this paper form and then it becomes an electronic document. That is digitization. Digitalization, though, is a bit different. Digitalization really speaks to having processes and using the same digital media in ways that affect not just what you do, but how you do things. And these really speak to end-to-end adjustments as it relates to getting something done. So it's really aligned with business processes, people, change, all those things go into digitalization. So when we speak about the Ministry of Digital Transformation, we're speaking about using ICT technology to deliver services and things in new ways.
All right, so basically we're doing both in the Ministry of Digital Transformation, yeah?
They have to happen. They're symbiotic in the way they work. You can't have
one without
a
the other
digitalized set of things when you don't have digital content to use it. So The answer is both have to happen.
Fantastic. So tell me about the plans for making the e-governance part of it, because yes, you're talking about using it in your everyday life, but I mean, as the government, we have a lot of services that we depend on the government to be able to provide or to access. Yeah?
Yes. So when you look at what we really try to do, if you want to look at it from the government perspective, what we're trying to do is to create digital government. And digital government really involves, and we had coined a brand new definition for it. But ultimately, what it is that we are trying to change the culture and the way in which services are delivered. We want to make them more efficient. We want to use ICT where appropriated every way. We want to automate as much as possible. But ultimately, it redounds to people being able to access all the services that we have and offer in the most efficient way to do it, using technology. There are really 4 pieces that have to be addressed when you speak about digital transformation. And I borrow the actual way I say it from the Honorable Attorney General. And the 4 things are plant, and when I say plant, and we're talking about technology in my case, you're talking about people, you're talking about process, and you're talking about legislation.
Right.
In the ministry, as currently formulated, what we're trying to do is to harness all of that, coordinate it in terms of the activities that we have to achieve through all of the various ministries that exist, ministries, divisions, and agencies, and use those 4 pillars in such ways that we create the type of change that we want to do.
Minister, this is no easy feat, because for decades now we've been complaining that ministries don't work together, and we often see it, we hear people complain about it all the time. How do you plan to get all of these ministries to be able to work together to give you the information necessary and to give you the access necessary to be able to improve their services and digitalize them?
So, it's interesting the way you say that. I think one of the reasons why we've stumbled before is that we've tried to do this in silos. So the Ministry of Works will go off and do its thing. The Ministry of Education will be off doing its thing. And while there's benefit to that, unless it is coordinated properly, you don't have that. In the Ministry of Digital Transformation, what you have is that body that does that. And it doesn't just do it because it has become a ministry. There are a number of committees that have already been set up that allows for the harnessing of all of that power that exists within the ministries and aligning them with the goals that are set out. And for the general public, it's quite easy to see what the government is trying to do. There are a number of documents already in the public domain that speak to what we're actually set out to do. You have the National ICT Plan 2018-2022. There is the Roadmap to Recovery document. There is the Vision 2030 document. And if you want to look at it purely in a political stance, you could go look at the PNM manifesto. You will find inside of there where the focus is going to be. What are we really trying to do? We're trying to create an identity for every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. Why would we want to do that? So that you would be known to the state. So that when you apply for services, you don't have to fill out these numerous amount of forms to get the same thing done. Every ministry that you go to, you have to enter the same thing. We're building what I describe as an information superhighway. Basically, we're connecting all the ministries together so that the appropriate information can be securely and in a robust and resilient manner be transferred between them so that you can access your services easier and that whatever coordination is required happens within that. And of course, we're coupled with that, the digitization of the records and the digitalization associated with the process changes to make that work. That is how it's going to happen. So the ministries still have their own responsibilities. It's not that the Ministry of Digital Transformation is going to usurp all of the things that the ministries currently do. They still have their responsibilities. They're still responsible for the integrity of their data, but they're working within an aligned framework which the Ministry of Digital Transformation sets.
This sounds almost like a dream come true, Minister. I can't tell a lie, because it's very difficult sometimes, like you said, when you go from one ministry to the other, you have to fill out the same documents to get the same things done over and over and over again. So I look forward to this happening. What is the timeline we're looking at?
So, you know, when we speak about timelines, I like to speak about milestones.
Right.
I have been given a mandate and had been given such a mandate when I was part of the previous ministry to get certain things done within 2022. But for Trinidad and Tobago itself to have the digital economy pieces that you want, to have it as a vibrant and contributing part of our GDP and so on, it's a longer time frame to do that. Really what we're looking to do in terms of milestones is to create and build the services that will impact the citizenry the fastest. Meaning, you have already seen, because of what has happened with COVID, you've already seen some of the things that had to happen. Right. In the Ministry of Education, for example, where people have not been physically in schools for a year. But so what do you do in a case like that? Well, when they go back to school, it doesn't mean that everything goes back the same way. You have blended learning that will be introduced in the Minister of Education will speak to those things. We want to deal with the Ministry of Social Development. It is not just because of the pandemic, but continuously throughout the year, people have need to access the services of the Social Development Ministry. We want to get that running and going quickly. The Ministry of Finance, it's very difficult to operate anywhere without having those things set up and have those working. And of course, the Ministry of Health. So those would be the priority areas that we're going to do it. And you're seeing a lot of the change happening around you already. It's just that because it's happening so incrementally, you're not necessarily feeling the big bang effect. But as we roll out more and more of them, you'll start to notice it more and more. But the idea is it's really milestone driven, and you'll start to see them happening more and more as time goes on. But a number of them will happen before the end of this year and the upcoming year.
All right, so we have milestones that happen in each year that we can measure and say, all right, we have accomplished this, we have accomplished. I know that you guys have already, things that are in place with regards to, you mentioned the Ministry of Finance. I know the e-tax is already in place where you can do your taxes online and that sort of thing. But with regards to ministries like social development, right? You're saying that people are needy. There are people with needs that have to be fulfilled through government services. A lot of the challenges, I think, would revolve around access to getting to the online platforms for some of those people. How do we mitigate those risks?
So there are a couple of ways to avoid it. So again, things have been happening around you and not necessarily being noticed in a number of ways. So what has happened since over the last year? The Telecommunications Authority, and we're talking now about, when you speak about access, we're talking about areas where people are either underserved or not being served at all in terms of the ability to connect. The Telecommunication Authority, in conjunction with the service providers, what that did is that it made available appropriate spectrum and so on and facilities to allow for those those service providers to expand their coverage to include now areas that were previously either underserved or unserved. That continues. You also have initiatives of the ministry where we're dealing with the creation of ICT centers. There are a number of them already, and more are being built. What is that? That is a place within the community. It is a staffed place within the community, staffed by people from the community, where you can go without having a device, without anything, to access services. If you do have a device, you can go with it, and there's a lounge available, and as COVID restrictions ease, you'll be able to use that more and more. You can go with your own device, do what you want. You can print things there, and the people there are trained to help you along what you're doing. Also, as we build the services, we want to make them as friendly as possible. You know, it's not that you have to use a computer. We're getting those things scaled that they work and you see them properly on the most popular device in the world, the cell phone. Mm-hmm. And so even those things are going on. We're trying to make the websites and the things that you have to access without charge. We've had a number of those happen along with the service providers and so on. We're expanding the Wi-Fi footprint across the country, whereby wherever you are, you should have access to and be able to connect. So it is that, so that whole landscape has to happen, but it is ongoing. And like I said, it's happening around you all the time. Not everyone notices.
How many of the ICT centers do we have up and running already?
If I am not mistaken, 10 are up already. And we have in the pipeline now, I think another 10 already being built. And they're being done, some are being built by the Telecommunications Authority and some are being built by the ministry.
I have to wonder, Minister, if we're not wasting resources, because we already have so many libraries across the country, and maybe we can integrate that as part of a ICT hub, because all of them have these little hubs where they have internet access and they have connectivity. And why not just utilize some of those instead of building brand new facilities?
So in some cases, we are building new facilities. In some cases, we're repurposing already built facilities within the community. So while I say ICT center, it can reside, for example, within the community center within the area. So it's not that we're going to be building all of, some of them we need to build infrastructure. So that's just a given. But in a lot of cases, if you take the Caranage one, for example, it's built in what used to be the police station.
Right.
It is adjacent to, what is a homework center. And it's interesting, the relationship between that. You have the ICT center at one place, the homework center, which is just in front of it. And the homework center gets its internet from the ICT center.
Well,
libraries, all of those other places, as we change the way people think, also become hubs for places where you can do it, because all of the libraries are already outfitted with Wi-Fi and the ability for people to connect and do things other than what you normally go to a library to do. This is the type of transformation we're talking about.
Fantastic. Minister, tell me something. You recently launched the Travel Pass, the TT Travel Pass, as one of the apps under the ministry. Who are the people responsible for developing these apps?
So there are a number of things. TT Travel Pass is actually quite a good example because it shows the collaboration that has to happen. Realize that Minister Young would have been the coordinator for that. At the press conference, you would have seen him making the presentations and so on. And that is because to do this, and you see TT Travel Pass, really took an effort from a number of things. We had to have private enterprise in there. We had to have various ministries, the Ministry of Works and Transport, Ministries of Health, as you would imagine, all of those, plus, of course, civil aviation, the airport, customs, the list goes on. That coordination is required. The technology behind it, we use a couple companies to do that. But the actual work and the care and feeding and so on of it is being done by local people. So right. the NICT and the other folks that we have within the ministry are the people who are really working to keep it up and running. I've been in touch with those people for the entirety of the weekend, just validating, making sure that it's up and running. Do we have any issues? If we have issues, how are we taking care of them? Is the system agile enough to make the adjustments that need to be made as things happen in real time and so on? And on all of those fronts, we've been quite successful. So right. We continue to work on that. That is just an example of it. There are many, 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 many more that you will hear about upcoming. We are working on some with the Ministry of Finance, within valuations, working on things specifically with the Social Development Ministry, the Ministry of Education, all of those. And currently we're actively working with the Ministry of Health as well. Those things, you'll start to see those things rolling out very quickly. as we move
Minister,
along
I'm gonna be really honest with you, Minister. I have a concern about us not using enough local developers, because when I scrolled down the Travel TT web the page, and I got to the bottom, it said that it was designed and built by a company called Amber Innovations. When I did some research into that company, they are Jamaican, they are Indian, they're based in other parts of the world, and not Trinidad and Tobago. They didn't mention that, at least. But not only that, but there was a bit of an issue when they built the COVID-19 app for Jamaica, where there was a security issue. How do we make sure that we don't end up in those same security issues, and why aren't we using local developers as well?
So let me deal with both things kind of together. So it is the policy of this government to use as much local as we can, and use it because it becomes the more sustainable way to do things. There are some things that you have to purchase, not all things, but far and by far, the way in which we want to do this is that we want to use as much local developers as possible. Many of those large projects that we're talking about, the e-identity, the information superhighway, and so on, all of that is going to be built using local technology. Yes, we have integrators and consultants that will help us, that won't be from here, but by and large, the majority of the work, and it is the intent of this ministry to ensure that there's significant local content. As far as security is concerned, now, one of the reasons why we use Amber is that Amber has built this all over the Caribbean. So one of the things when you have to accelerate things to get them done, there are other solutions. It's not that Amber is the only one, but they work in the Caribbean. They've built a number of them in the Caribbean. As far as the security is concerned, and that is a really key thing, organizations, governments, everybody that I could think of, if you look in their top 3 enterprise risks, what you're sure to see cybersecurity in the middle of it. We have a robust mechanism to ensure that that is not going to happen here. We're working on making sure that those breaches will happen. How do we do that? Well, one, there's a security posture and architecture through which all of our applications must go through. We're rolling that out. There are some that were built before that probably are not up to standard yet. We are going to each and every one of them and making sure that they are compliant. Within the Ministry of National Security, there is a subset of that organization that is responsible, that is tasked with testing and checking all of the security requirements for anything that we launch. The CSIRT group, they have looked at and will continue to look at every single application that is being launched. And once this ministry is here and we are doing it, has to go through a security check via those people. We're also using some of the best in the world in terms of the security, in terms of security, cybersecurity. We have a number of organizations that are aligned with us that are helping us with our security posture. That is in, through, and around. And I can expand on that if you wish, or if you want to talk about national security and cybersecurity as it.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have time to expound on it any further. However, I would like to invite you to come back as we continue to check in on the milestones. I know that you have a lot on your plate with this ministry because, like you said, it's a lot of work, and I know that education is also going to be a big part of it. And hopefully next time that we can talk about how we're going to educate the wider public on the safety of using these online services. But Minister, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning and sharing this information with us. Again, congratulations on your appointment and all the best going forward.
Thank you, Raucus, and thank you to the team and to Trinidad and Tobago. Stay tuned. There's more to come, and we will be rolling out services just for you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's Senator the Honorable Hassel Bacchus, the Minister of Digital Transformation, and he's telling us that we're going to build the information superhighway. No longer are you going to have to stand up in long lines and fill out forms to be able to get access to government services. We look forward. This is a day we've been dreaming of. Let's take a quick break and come back with more inside the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.